There's a profound and often uncomfortable truth that too many people ignore as they age. Your responsibility does not retire. The moment you decide that you have earned the right to withdraw from the demands of life, from the call to serve and guide others, you invite decay, not only in your body, but in your soul. And decay, if left unchecked, spreads into the world around you. We live in a culture that tells us the highest good is leisure. We are sold the dream of early retirement, endless vacations, and freedom from responsibility. The ads show us tanned, smiling couples on beaches, finally able to live for themselves. But what they don't show is the emptiness that so often follows when we try to make pleasure our purpose. When you remove responsibility from a human life, you are left with a vacuum, and nature abhors a vacuum. Chaos rushes in, meaninglessness creeps into the corners. You were not designed to end your days in idle comfort. You were designed to carry weight, to shoulder burdens, to live with purpose until the very end. This isn't a cruel demand, it's a profound gift, because it is through responsibility that we experience meaning. It is through sacrifice, through service, through showing up for others that our lives take on depth and significance. The moment you set that down, you don't just slip into harmless rest, you start to erode, and so does the world around you. Think about the lives you touch, your children, your grandchildren, your neighbors, your church community. Whether you realize it or not, they are looking to you. They need your steadiness, your wisdom, your presence. They need someone who has walked through the storms of life and come out the other side with scars, yes, but also with strength. They need you to stand firm, because if you don't, who will? Responsibility is what keeps the world from falling apart. And in a very real sense, it is older men and women, people who have lived, who have seen pain, who have failed and gotten back up, who are called to hold the line. You are the moral memory of your family. You are the keeper of the stories, the lessons, the warnings, and the blessings. You are the living proof that it's possible to endure. And if you decide that you're done, that you've paid your dues, you rob the next generation of that foundation. But this isn't just about others, it's also about you. Because when you lay down responsibility, you lay down the very thing that makes you strong. Discipline shrinks, resilience fades. You start to retreat from the world, and soon you find yourself bitter, resentful, disillusioned. People often think they are tired of working or serving, when in reality, they are tired of working without meaning. The answer is not to quit. The answer is to reconnect to the kind of responsibility that nourishes your spirit. That's why your work in God's kingdom never ends. There is always someone to encourage, always someone to teach, always someone to love. There is always one more act of courage, one more word of truth, one more hand you can extend to lift someone up. And here's the real paradox. It's in giving your life away that you actually find it. It's in choosing to stay engaged, to stay faithful, to stay in the fight that you become fully alive. So reject the lie of retirement from responsibility. Refuse the small, shrinking life of comfort without consequence. Choose instead the path of strength, the path of service, the path of meaning, because as long as you have breath, you have a role to play. As long as you are here, you are needed. And when you stand firm in your responsibility, you not only bless the world, you become the person you were meant to be. Responsibility doesn't retire. Order and meaning come through purpose, combined into a flowing 600-word speech without headings. There's a truth we often resist, especially as we grow older. Responsibility doesn't retire. We live in a world that teaches us that the goal is to work hard so we can one day quit, kick back, and finally live for ourselves. But that mindset is not only shallow, it's dangerous. Because the moment we lay down responsibility, we invite chaos, not just into our own lives, but into the lives of those around us. Responsibility is what gives shape and weight to life. It's what calls us to be more than just a bundle of appetites seeking comfort. And when we reject it, we don't just free ourselves, we unmoor ourselves, we drift. We were made to carry weight. We were made to be of service, to guide, to protect, to build, to nurture. That doesn't stop at 60 or 70 or even 90. In fact, as you age, your capacity to carry meaningful responsibility often deepens. You've seen more, you know more, you've made mistakes, and you've learned. And the younger generation desperately needs that. They need people who have endured storms and come through stronger. They need models of what it means to stay engaged when the world tells you to check out. Well, let's be clear. This isn't just about duty to others. It's about survival of the self. Because when you cast off responsibility, you begin to collapse inward. You begin to live only for comfort. And comfort is a terrible master. It softens you in all the wrong ways. It makes you small, anxious, easily wounded, bitter. People who abandon responsibility in the name of freedom soon find that they have traded away the very thing that gave their life meaning. And this brings us to the second great truth. Order and meaning come through purpose. Without purpose, chaos rushes in. You can see this in people who, upon retiring, lose their sense of identity. They thought they were just tired of work, but it turns out they were tired of meaningless work. What they really needed was not rest, but reorientation. When you wake up in the morning with no sense of why you're here, your mind and spirit start to disintegrate. Anxiety creeps in. Depression finds an opening. The ground under your feet feels less solid because you no longer know where you're going. Purpose is what orders the soul. It's the map that tells you which way to walk when the road is hard. It's what draws you out of bed when your body aches. It's what gives you the resilience to face disappointment, failure, even tragedy without being destroyed by them. And that purpose is not something you can invent out of thin air. It's something you discover by aligning yourself with what is good and true and needed. It may be found in mentoring younger people, in deepening your spiritual practice, in acts of service in your community, in becoming a peacemaker in your family. The key is to understand that you are never irrelevant. There is no expiration date on your usefulness in God's kingdom. The world may tell you to shrink your life as you age, to become quieter, smaller, less ambitious, but the call of God is always outward, always toward greater life, greater wisdom, greater courage. And the reward is not just the good you do for others, it's the person you become in the process, a person of depth, a person of resilience, a person who can face the final chapters of life not with fear or regret, but with strength and peace. So do not buy the lie that you've done your part and can now retreat. As long as you breathe, you are part of the story, and your part matters. Stay in the fight, stay responsible, stay purposeful, and in doing so, you will not only bless those around you, you will become the kind of person who stands firm when the world trembles. Responsibility doesn't retire. Order and meaning come through purpose. Wisdom is your greatest asset. Share it. There is a dangerous lie woven into the modern imagination, and it whispers this: once you reach a certain age, you've done your part, you can now rest, retreat, and let the younger generation carry the weight. But that is not how God's kingdom works. There is no retirement from responsibility, no phase of life where you are excused from meaning, no age when you become irrelevant. You were designed to carry weight, to stand firm, and to give of yourself until the very end. And it's not just the world that needs you to do this. You need it too. Without responsibility, you wither. Without purpose, you drift. When people set down responsibility, they often think they are gaining freedom. What they fail to see is that freedom without responsibility quickly turns into emptiness. You were made to bear burdens, to love, to serve, to guide, to sacrifice. The truth is, we find ourselves in the very act of giving ourselves away. That doesn't end when the children leave the house or when the career winds down. In fact, in many ways, that's when the most meaningful work begins. Because as you age, you are uniquely positioned to offer something no young person can give: wisdom. But externally, as a society, we settle for average. Without purpose, the soul begins to unravel. It is a brutal but quiet collapse. You see it all around you. People who once thrived in the demands of raising families, leading businesses, or building communities, who upon retiring lose their sense of direction. They thought they were tired of responsibility, but they were actually tired of meaningless toil. The answer is not to retreat into comfort. The answer is to find a purpose that truly matters. Purpose brings order. It shapes your days and orients your decisions. It answers the fundamental human need to know why you are here. Without it, chaos fills the vacuum, and with chaos comes anxiety, boredom, and decay. But here's where the older generation has a profound role to play. Wisdom is your greatest asset, and the world is starving for it. Younger people are drowning in information but starving for wisdom. They don't need more data, more opinions, more noise. They need people who have lived, who have suffered, who have overcome, who have failed and risen again. You are that person. You carry decades of hard-earned lessons. You have seen what endures and what collapses under pressure. You know in your bones the difference between what merely shines and what truly matters. If you withhold that wisdom, you impoverish the people around you. You leave them to stumble in the dark, to make the same mistakes you could have helped them avoid. But when you share your wisdom, not as a preacher, but as a companion, a mentor, a guide, you give a gift beyond measure. You give younger people a map for their own lives. And in doing so, you also keep yourself alive in the truest sense. Because when you pass on what you've learned, you stay connected to the flow of life. You become a bridge between generations, you find new meaning in old struggles, and you discover that your life matters not just for what you built, but for what you leave behind in the hearts of others. So do not lay down responsibility. Do not drift without purpose. Do not hoard the wisdom you've earned. Instead, stand firm in your calling. Stay anchored in purpose and pour out your wisdom with courage and love. Because in God's kingdom, every season of life has work to do, and until your final breath, you are called to serve, to guide, and to bless. Responsibility doesn't retire. Order and meaning come through purpose. Wisdom is your greatest asset, share it. Discipline sustains the soul. There is no retirement in God's kingdom. The modern world sells us the idea that after a certain age, we have earned the right to step away, to withdraw from duty, and to live for ourselves. But that idea runs counter to the design written into our very being. We were made to carry responsibility, and that responsibility does not end when we turn 60 or 70 or even 80. The call to love, to serve, to guide, and to build does not expire. And when we lay it down too early, we don't just remove a burden from our lives, we begin to erode the very thing that gives us life. Responsibility gives life shape, and it gives us a reason to get up in the morning. Without it, we drift. We begin to imagine that comfort is the goal, that leisure is the reward. But we soon discover the bitter truth. When purpose leaves, chaos enters. We were made to live with purpose. Without it, we become anxious, restless, and ultimately lost. Retirement from responsibility does not lead to peace. It leads to decline. The antidote is to re-anchor ourselves to purpose, to the why of our existence. And that purpose is not always dramatic or grand. Often it is found in the daily, faithful acts of love, service, and presence with others. As we age, we hold a treasure that no one younger can claim. Wisdom, you cannot buy it, fake it, or download it. It is earned through decades of failure, perseverance, joy, loss, and reflection. And the world is desperate for it. Younger generations are often adrift, flooded with information, but starving for wisdom, for guidance on what matters, what lasts, what is worth sacrificing for. You are a living library of that wisdom. But a library closed and locked is of no use to anyone. You are meant to share what you've learned, not to lecture or control, but to walk alongside, to offer perspective, to remind those coming behind you that they are part of a larger story. But none of this happens automatically. It takes discipline. Spiritual strength is not a gift handed to you once and for all. It is built day by day like muscle. Without discipline, the soul atrophies. Prayer, study, worship, service. These are not just religious activities. They are training, memory for the soul. They keep you alert, resilient, and anchored when the storms come. As you age, the temptation to let go of discipline grows. You may feel you've earned a rest from spiritual labor, but discipline is what keeps the heart alive and awake. Without it, you drift into passivity, and passivity opens the door to despair. There is no moment in life when you become unnecessary. There is no point when God looks at you and says, "You've done enough, now you can fade away." As long as you draw breath, you are part of his work. That work will change shape over time, but it will never lose its importance. You are called to stand firm, to stay purposeful, to pour out your wisdom, and to remain disciplined in heart and spirit. And in doing so, you do not merely survive your later years, you become fully, fiercely alive, blessing the world around you and preparing to meet your Maker with a life well lived. Responsibility doesn't retire. Order and meaning come through purpose. Wisdom is your greatest asset. Share it. Discipline sustains the soul. Legacy over comfort.